They call it a quiet night. The mountains are dark, the air is cold, and the bell of St. Thecla rings the last time for evening prayer. The convent sits on a ledge above the valley, white walls against black rock, its chapel light a small glow in the wind. Inside, 20 women kneel on stone. Their voices move through the psalm in one unbroken line. At the back of the chapel, a young nun named Elena presses her fingers to the worn wood of the pew and tries to steady her breath. She can hear the tremor in her own voice. She hopes no one else does. Her habit brushes the floor. Her rosary bumps against her hip when she shifts her weight. She has prayed in this room every day for 10 years. Tonight the air tastes different. Beyond the walls, she can hear something under the wind. Not wolves, not thunder, drums. The abbess raises her hand and the voices fall silent. For a moment, it sounds like any other pause in the liturgy. Then the women hear it too. The low, steady rhythm from the road that climbs toward them. Boots, hooves, metal shifting on leather. The sound comes and goes with the wind, as if the mountain itself is breathing. Nobody speaks. Nobody needs to. They all know the stories. It is the year 1470. The Ottoman Empire is tightening its grip around the last Christian strongholds in Greece and the Balkans. Villages that once sent oil and grain to the convent now send stories of new taxes, of boys taken in the Sultan's levy, of churches turned into mosques, of monasteries half burned, half spared. The stories rarely mention what happens to the nuns. When the prayer ends, the abbess gives the usual blessing, but her voice is strained. She dismisses the sisters to their cells. Nobody sleeps. Elena sits on her narrow bed, habit still on, eyes fixed on the tiny iron cross above the door. In the corridor outside, she hears footsteps, whispered arguments, the scrape of a bar being dropped into place across the main gate. Then at last, the sound that will end the life she knows, fists and hammerheads pounding on wood. From the valley below, the convent must look small and fragile. From inside, it has always felt eternal. Thick walls, old icons, their paint darkened by smoke and time. A library of worn manuscripts, copied by hand over generations. A cellar, where herbs dry on hooks and jars of oil line the shelves. For the villagers, St. Thecla is not just a building. It is a presence, a place where their dead are remembered and their sick are named in prayer. To the men outside, it is something else. It is property. The pounding stops. A voice calls out in a language that most of the sisters do not understand. Another voice follows in Greek. By order of the Sultan, it announces, "Open this gate. We come with protection." The word protection hangs in the air like smoke. That is the word empires love. It sounds gentle. It sounds kind. It hides everything that comes after it. When we think of conquest, we picture fire and slaughter. We imagine soldiers storming walls, cutting down anyone in their way. That happened, often enough. But the Ottomans did not always need ruin. Dead nuns could become martyrs. Martyrs grow into legends. Legends travel faster than armies. The empire wanted something more useful than corpses. It wanted obedience. It wanted order. It wanted a world in which people woke up, did their work, paid their taxes, and slowly forgot what had been taken from them. The convent gate opens. Elena stands at the back of the courtyard with the other sisters as a column of horsemen and foot soldiers enters. Their armor catches the torchlight. Some wear turbans. Others have caps wrapped around their heads, cloaks thrown over their shoulders against the cold. In front rides an official in a fur-lined coat, his beard trimmed close, his expression unreadable. Beside him walks a dragoman, an interpreter. He carries a parchment sealed with green wax. The official dismounts. The abbess steps forward. They face each other in the torchlight. One woman in a threadbare habit, one man wrapped in the power of an empire that stretches from the Danube to the Euphrates. The dragoman reads from the parchment. "By the mercy of the Sultan," he says, "this convent and all its lands are now placed under imperial protection. No soldier may harm the sisters. No villager may steal their goods. Their lives will be spared." It sounds like a blessing. Then the rest of the decree follows. All titles and lands once held by the convent now belong to the crown. The fields, the olive groves, the mill by the river, even the small vineyard the sisters tended for altar wine, all are written into new tax registers in the name of the Sultan. The convent is allowed to remain, for now, as a women's house under imperial authority. The sisters must register their names, ages, and skills. They must accept the presence of guards. They may not take on new novices without permission. Protection has a shape. It looks like ink on paper. Elena listens, heart pounding, as her world is turned into lines in a ledger. At first, the change feels almost subtle. The next morning, the sun still rises over the ridge. The bell still rings. The sisters still chant the psalms. But the rhythm of prayer now shares space with the rhythm of inspection. Soldiers walk the perimeter, counting doors and windows. An official from the town arrives with clerks who examine the treasury, the storerooms, the library. They touch chalices with hands that do not cross themselves. They measure the fields with ropes. They speak in calm voices about numbers. The nuns are called one by one into the chapter room. A scribe dips his pen and writes their names, their ages, where they were born, whether they can read or write. For the empire, this is not a house of women with stories and vows. It is a list of units, a workforce, and something else. In the eyes of the Ottomans, Christian holy women are both a problem and a resource. They are tied to communities the empire now needs to control. They also carry skills, reading, healing, teaching, that can be redirected to serve new masters. The empire learns quickly that it does not need to kill nuns to break their world. It just needs to move them. Within weeks, a second decree arrives. St. Thecla will not be allowed to remain as it is. The building is valuable, and the land beneath it more so. The convent is to be repurposed as an imperial estate center. The sisters are to be relocated. The word relocated sounds almost harmless. It means this: the community will be split apart. Elena hears the order in stunned silence. She looks at the faces around her. The girl who arrived only last year, fingers still clumsy on the rosary. The old sister who knows every herb in the hills. The abbess whose hands shook as she hid certain manuscripts before the first inspection. These women have shared bread and candles and winter coughs for years. Now a voice from the Imperial Chancery says, "You will not live together anymore." Half of the sisters, the decree says, will be moved to a former monastery, closer to the new Ottoman administrative town, and kept there as a group. They will live under supervision, performing work assigned by local officials. A quarter will be sent to households loyal to the empire, homes of local governors, judges, and wealthy merchants, as servants, tutors, or weavers. They will retain protected status, but their obedience will be guaranteed by the authority of the men who own those households. The youngest and healthiest will be taken farther, towards the coastal cities, and from there, perhaps to Constantinople itself. Choice is not mentioned. The Ottomans do not, in this moment, burn the convent or put the sisters to the sword. They do something colder. They take a community that has lived as one body for decades and slice it into pieces. On the appointed day, carts stand in the courtyard. The sisters are grouped like items in a shipment. Elena is assigned to the group bound for the provincial town. She loads her few possessions into a bundle: a change of linen, a worn prayer book, a small icon painted by a sister long dead. When she tries to lift one of the old stone crosses from the chapel garden to hide it under her cloak, a guard stops her with a shake of the head. The cross stays. She goes. The road down the mountain is steep and stony. Guards ride ahead and behind. The sisters walk. No whips crack, no swords flash. The cruelty here is not spectacle. It is method. Day after day, they move. The first day, the villagers watch them pass, some weeping, some kneeling, as the sisters raise their hands to bless them. On the second, there are only fields and ravens. On the third, rain. The hem of Elena's habit soaks, then dries stiff with dust. At night, they sleep in barns or under rough canvas, huddled together for warmth. The guards keep their distance unless someone collapses. Then they step in to make sure the column keeps moving. If you looked at this from the outside, you might call it a transfer, a reorganization. You might even praise it as mercy. The nuns are alive. They're being escorted. They are not being massacred. Inside their bodies, it feels different. With every step away from the mountain, they lose a layer of themselves. The place where they took vows, the graves they tended, the routines that anchored their minds. The empire knows that if you want to break a vow, you don't always need to put a person on a rack. You can simply remove every piece of ground that made that vow feel real. When they reach the town, the group is led to a walled compound that used to belong to another religious order. Its crosses are gone. The bell tower is silent. In its center, a new building stands half-finished, its stones fresh and pale, an imperial warehouse. The nuns are housed in the old dormitory. Iron locks have been added to the doors. From now on, they are not sisters of Saint Thecla. They are the Christian women of the women's house, a category in local reports and tax accounts. Their prayers are tolerated as long as they cause no trouble. Their labor is not just tolerated, it is expected. An official explains the rules in careful Greek. They will spin and weave cloth for state contracts. They will help copy records if they can write. They will tend the sick in the town when called upon. In exchange, they will receive food, shelter, and above all, the Sultan's protection. Protection now means this: you belong to us. Among the women assigned to household service, the shift is even sharper. A group of 5 is taken from the compound and delivered to the house of a local judge. He has a sprawling home with a courtyard fountain, servants' quarters, storerooms. His wife, veiled and sharp-eyed, looks the nuns over like someone inspecting tools. These women will grind grain, wash clothes, sew garments, and help teach the judge's daughters to read. They will no longer rise at midnight for vigils. They will rise when the kitchen bell rings. They will keep their habits for now, but they will not keep their names. The household staff gives them new ones, shortened, softened, easy to shout across a courtyard. Over time, the old names are used less and less. A woman who once signed her letters Sister Anastasia becomes in daily sound Nasya, or simply girl. The empire understands something basic. If you want to erase a person, you start by erasing how others call her. The pressure to convert does not arrive with swords. It arrives with smiles and bowls of stew. Once a week, an imam visits the compound. He sits in the courtyard under a stretched awning, while soldiers and clerks stand nearby. He speaks in a gentle, measured tone about the mercy of God, the beauty of the Quran, the greatness of the Sultan as defender of the faith. A dragoman translates into Greek, or another local language. At first, the nuns sit stiffly, hands hidden in their sleeves, eyes on the ground. The imam is careful. He does not insult their faith. He frames his words as an invitation. The guards watch, arms folded, saying nothing. The offers begin small. If they listen quietly, they receive extra bread. If they repeat a prayer after the imam, they are praised for their intelligence. If one of them shows interest, her work becomes lighter for a few days. She might be allowed to sit closer to the fire. She might be given a piece of fruit. None of this is announced as a bargain. It is understood as one. Refusal is not punished with lashes. It is punished with absence. No extra bread, harder tasks, longer hours. A forgetting when it comes time to distribute winter cloaks. This is how you change people without creating martyrs. You make the path of resistance colder, hungrier, lonelier than the path of surrender. In the judge's house, the process is even more intimate. The wife assigns one of the former nuns, a woman named Maria, to help with the younger children. She brings her into the inner rooms. She shows her how to wrap a scarf in the local style, how to speak a few phrases of Turkish so the neighbors will understand. Maria watches as the family prays. She notices how their bodies move, how the children mimic their parents. The judge's wife tells her, in a soft moment, that God sees all hearts, that he does not reject those who come late to the truth. Maria nods but says nothing. Weeks turn into months. The empire does not rush. It has time. It can wait years for a woman to bend. While she bends, she works. Some never bend. They cling to their prayers in secret, crossing themselves at night under the blanket, whispering psalms into their hands. When they are caught at it, they are not beaten. They are assigned to the heaviest jobs, hauling water, scrubbing floors, tending the sick during outbreaks. People tell them, with a shrug, that if they will not accept the mercy of conversion, this is the life they choose. The message is clear. You are free to believe as you wish, as long as you are ready to pay for it. Others collapse under the strain. In the second year at the compound, one of the younger nuns, barely 20, falls ill. She has been working long hours at the looms, fingers bleeding from the rough wool, shoulders aching. The winter is harsh. The rations are thin. When the imam visits, she watches him with hollow eyes. One evening, she asks to speak to the overseer. She says the words that will change everything. She wishes to embrace the faith of the Sultan. From that moment, the documents will say she converted willingly. There will be no mention of the nights she went to sleep hungry, of the way the guards laughed when she stumbled, of the creeping dread that she would die in a nameless ward with nobody to bury her in the way she was taught. The day after her declaration, she is given a new dress, clean and bright. Her hair is uncovered for the ceremony, then reveiled in a different style. She receives a Muslim name. An entry is made in the local record. One woman of the former convent has entered the protection of Islam. Her former sisters see her in the courtyard later. Her clothes are newer. Her work is lighter. Her eyes are not. The empire will point to her as proof of its tolerance. Look, they will say, we did not force her. She saw the truth. If she cries at night, nobody writes that down. Not every story ends this way. Some nuns vanish into harsher routes. Those whose loyalty is questionable, or whose families are tied to rebellions, can be sent farther east, into the deep countryside of Anatolia. There, the empire has endless need of anonymous labor, in farms, in workshops, in caravanserais. A nun with a sharp tongue might find herself sweeping the courtyard of a remote inn, serving food to travelers who do not know she once sang the entire Psalter by heart. In the ledger of that inn, she is Christian woman, hired help. Her vow, her learning, her convent, all vanish behind that line. Others end up in the vast machinery of the imperial capital. Constantinople, now Istanbul, draws people from every corner of the empire. In its back streets and side courtyards, you can find small communities of displaced women, widows, refugees, former nuns. Some work in bathhouses, some in weaving rooms, some in the endless kitchens that feed palaces and barracks. Their past belongs to another world. Their present belongs to whoever signs their rations. What the empire has done here is simple and brutal in its logic. It has taken a group of women whose lives once revolved around a shared faith and place. It has scattered them across distance and roles. It has offered reward for those who adapt and slow, choking hardship for those who do not. It has not, in most cases, lined them up for execution. It has done something colder. It has erased the structures that made them visible. For centuries after, when chroniclers write about the Ottoman conquest of a region, they mention the fall of castles, the surrender of towns, the terms granted to bishops. The nuns appear as a brief note, if at all. The convents were emptied, one writer may say. The women were spared. That word, spared, does heavy work. It suggests mercy while hiding everything that happened afterward. The pattern is not unique to the Ottomans. Many empires have understood that you can break an enemy by destroying their institutions, not only their bodies. But in this case, the target is specific. Communities of women who had carved out a space of authority inside a patriarchal world. Before the conquest, a convent like St. Thecla is more than a prayer factory. It is where villagers go when they need someone to read a letter from a distant son. It is where sick children are brought when the local doctor has no answer. It is where girls might learn to read or to sing. The abbess may mediate disputes, keep accounts, advise local notables. She has no army, but she has influence. From the empire's point of view, this can be useful, if it is loyal. If not, it is a threat. So the convent is emptied. Its lands are reassigned. Its library is stripped. Some books find their way into Ottoman collections. Others are sold or left to mold. The grave markers in its small cemetery are pulled up and used as building stone. The names carved there blur under new feet. The nuns who lived there become scattered figures in other people's households, their voices lowered, their roles narrowed. The historian looking back centuries later often finds very little. A stray line in a tax register mentioning the former nuns of X monastery, now in the women's house. A marginal note in a bishop's letter complaining that he can no longer visit a certain convent because it has been turned into a farm. An Ottoman inventory listing one building, formerly church, now storage. The women's inner lives, their choices, their cracks and resistances, sit in the dark between those lines. Sometimes, if you are careful, you can catch a glimmer. In one ruined monastery, archaeologists pry up a later floor and find beneath it a narrow, bricked-in cell. On its walls, scratched into the plaster with something sharp, are small crosses and short words in Greek. Kyrie eleison. Remember, no dates, no names, just marks of hands that refuse to stay still. In another site, a broken icon is found hidden behind a beam, its face peeled away, leaving only the gold background and a fragment of a hand raised in blessing. Someone hid it there when the soldiers came. Someone meant for it to be found again. It took 500 years. In an Ottoman archive, a scholar turns a page and sees a list of women being transferred from one institution to another. Their names are a mixture, some clearly Christian, some Muslim, some marked as newly converted. Next to a few entries is a note from the former convent of. The place name is smudged. What the empire tried to do with these women was not simple torture. It was a more complex kind of violence. It took their bodies and kept them alive. It took their vows and made them impossible to live. It took their names and filed them in drawers where nobody looked. It took their convents and turned them into units in a revenue map. When we talk about what the Ottomans did to Christian nuns, it is easy to imagine chains and dungeons and dark erotic fantasies. The reality is both less sensational and, in its way, more frightening. Most of the time, there were no dramatic scenes anyone would paint. there was paperwork. There were long walks under guard. There were years of small, grinding choices. Say this phrase, or be cold tonight. Stand in this line, or be cut off from news of your family. Smile at this official, or risk being sent somewhere worse. There was the slow realization, in women like Elena, that the world they gave their lives to serve no longer existed, and that the new world would not kill them, but would not allow them to be who they were. Some resisted in ways the record can barely catch. A nun might keep fasting according to her old calendar in secret, hiding food to give away when she could. She might teach a child in her new household to trace a cross on the underside of a table. She might pray in a language she was ordered to forget. These acts seemed small. They were all the space she had left. Others yielded outwardly and held on to scraps of self inside. They took new names, learned new prayers, wore silk instead of wool. To their neighbors, they were Fatma or Aisha, pious Muslim women who had seen the light. In the quiet of their rooms, they might still whisper a line from a psalm their mouths had spoken since childhood. Whether that made them traitors or survivors is a question that only they could answer, and they are gone. When you stand in the ruins of a mountain convent today, it is easy to see absence as emptiness. Stones tumbled, frescoes faded, silence where bells once rang. But absence has a shape. It tells you that something stood here with enough strength that an empire decided it had to be dismantled piece by piece. The Ottomans did not just add their own holy places to the map. They thinned out the ones that were already there, especially when those places gave women a voice. That is what happened to Elena and the women like her. Not one simple cinematic act of cruelty, but a chain of decisions made in offices, in council rooms, to register, to relocate, to divide, to pressure, to rename, to reuse. The result is a history where the conquest of a region is described in terms of fortresses and treaties, and the women who prayed on those ridges vanish into a sentence about how they were spared. They were not spared. They were repurposed. Their vows were turned into tools. Their silence was taken as consent. Their lives were folded into the empire's sense of order. What they left behind, the scratched crosses, the half-hidden icons, the faint lines in ledgers, is all that keeps them from being swallowed completely by the story the conquerors told about themselves. If you listen closely, the quiet of those ruined places is not empty. It is full of things that were never meant to be heard. Subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me which forgotten communities you want to hear about next.